Most people believe the worst moments of their lives arrive with warning signs loud enough to stop them before everything changes. But sometimes disaster begins with something so ordinary that you almost ignore it completely. A missed train, an empty subway station, a phone lying beside the tracks. And for 41-year-old Carter Hayes, that single moment would eventually pull him into a story so disturbing that even investigators later struggled separating truth from manipulation emotionally. Because the terrifying part about Carter's story is not that he went looking for danger. It's that danger quietly placed itself directly in front of him and waited for curiosity to do the rest. At exactly 12:17 in the morning, Carter Hayes stood alone on nearly empty subway platform beneath flickering fluorescent lights after missing the final train home. Rainwater dripped steadily from rusted ceiling pipes, while distant tunnel sounds echoed through the station like something moving far away underground. Carter had spent the evening photographing small nightclub event for barely enough money to cover overdue rent emotionally. His life no longer resembled the version he imagined years earlier, when photography still felt like future instead of survival. Divorce drained most of what remained emotionally stable inside him. Career failures finished the rest slowly over time. By 41, Carter moved through life quietly, speaking less than he once did, avoiding relationships, and convincing himself emotional isolation was temporary even though it had already become permanent routine psychologically. Then Carter noticed the phone. A cracked black phone lying dangerously close to the subway tracks, partially illuminated beneath weak station lights. At first, he almost ignored it because cities condition people emotionally to avoid involvement with strangers' problems whenever possible. But just as Carter turned away, the screen suddenly lit up. Incoming message. Don't let him see what's inside. Carter stopped walking immediately. There was no lock screen, no owner information, no emergency contacts. Only dozens of unread messages, hidden folders, voice recordings, and videos waiting silently inside the device like pieces of someone else's unfinished nightmare emotionally. Carter stared at the message longer than he later admitted publicly because something about the wording felt wrong psychologically. Not dramatic, not random, personal, desperate. Like whoever sent it genuinely believed the contents of the phone could destroy someone dangerous. And unfortunately for Carter Hayes, curiosity had always been his greatest weakness emotionally. Within minutes, he sat alone on the platform bench, scrolling through files he never should have opened. The first videos looked ordinary enough at first glance. Luxury apartment interiors, parking garages, business meetings secretly recorded from hidden angles. But then the footage changed emotionally. Carter watched unknown man staring directly toward concealed camera inside penthouse office, as though he somehow sensed he was being watched. Another clip showed frightened woman whispering into microphone while crying softly. "If something happens to me," she said, "it's because of him." Then the recording ended abruptly. Carter's stomach tightened emotionally because suddenly the phone no longer felt lost accidentally. It felt abandoned intentionally, like evidence someone desperately needed hidden before disappearing entirely. He continued searching deeper through the files while distant thunder echoed above the city streets outside. Police lights flashed across one recovered video showing officers surrounding abandoned warehouse late at night. Another folder contained screenshots of financial records, photographs of public officials, encrypted messages, and surveillance clips recorded secretly across multiple locations. And every minute Carter spent watching pulled him further into situation he no longer understood emotionally. Then another message appeared on the screen. "I know you took it." Carter physically froze. That was the exact moment fear entered the story psychologically, because until then the phone represented mystery, curiosity, possibly even opportunity emotionally for struggling man desperate to feel involved in something meaningful again. But now someone else clearly knew the device remained active. Worse still, they somehow knew Carter possessed it specifically. Suddenly, the nearly empty station around him felt completely different emotionally. Unsafe. Exposed. Every distant movement through tunnels sounded threatening. Every security camera mounted above the platform suddenly felt alive somehow. Carter stood quickly and began walking toward station exit while trying to convince himself he was overreacting emotionally. But halfway through the tunnel corridor, he noticed something deeply unsettling. Subway security monitors lining the walls flickered repeatedly, as though footage malfunctioned. Static distorted the screens before stabilizing briefly again. Then Carter realized one camera angle appeared to follow him slightly as he moved through the corridor psychologically. That impossible detail stayed buried inside his mind long afterward. Outside the station, rain hammered the empty streets while Carter hurried toward his car, gripping the phone tightly inside jacket pocket. He kept telling himself the responsible thing would be handing the device directly to police first thing in the morning emotionally. But another part of him already knew that would not happen. Because somewhere between the hidden videos, frightened voice messages, and anonymous warnings, Carter Hayes felt something he had not experienced in years. Purpose. That emotional vulnerability matters deeply in stories like this, because people rarely become trapped by dangerous mysteries purely through curiosity alone. They become trapped because the mystery fills emotional emptiness already existing inside them psychologically. Carter's lonely life suddenly carried urgency again. Meaning. Adrenaline. Questions needing answers emotionally. And perhaps the most dangerous realization of all is understanding how quickly human beings will ignore instinct once something finally makes them feel alive again. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because the story of Carter Hayes is not simply about finding lost phone inside subway station late at night emotionally. It's about how ordinary people slowly convince themselves they are still observers long after they become part of the danger directly. Most people watching this right now probably believe they would immediately turn the phone over to authorities without hesitation. That sounds logical emotionally. Safe. Responsible. But logic changes quickly once fear, curiosity, and secrecy start mixing together psychologically. Especially when the phone begins revealing truths someone desperately wants buried forever. Carter drove home through rain-covered streets while notifications continued appearing silently across the cracked black screen beside him. Unknown numbers. Encrypted messages. Missed calls arriving one after another. At red lights, he kept glancing toward rearview mirror, convinced same dark vehicle remained behind him across multiple intersections emotionally. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe paranoia. But fear changes how people interpret ordinary events psychologically once they believe they are being watched. And somewhere inside the hidden files of that phone, someone had already started watching Carter Hayes too. By the end of this story, one question becomes impossible to escape emotionally. Would you turn the phone in immediately? Or keep watching? Carter Hayes spent most of his adult life becoming invisible emotionally without fully realizing it was happening. At 41 years old, he no longer resembled the ambitious photographer who once believed talent alone could build meaningful future inside cities overflowing with competition and noise. Divorce hollowed out much of his confidence slowly over several painful years, and financial collapse finished what remained afterward. Carter still worked constantly, but now the assignments looked very different emotionally. Small nightclub events, real estate photography, cheap freelance jobs nobody else wanted. He spent more time alone inside his car between assignments than speaking to actual people most days. Friends gradually disappeared after the marriage ended because loneliness tends to isolate people quietly long before anyone notices psychologically. And that emotional isolation matters because it explains why Carter Hayes made decisions that changed everything afterward. Most people watching this story will probably believe the correct choice seems obvious emotionally. Find abandoned phone. Turn it over to police immediately. Walk away. But real life becomes far more complicated once curiosity starts attaching itself to fear psychologically. Especially when someone feels emotionally disconnected enough that mystery itself begins feeling more meaningful than ordinary life. Carter did not keep the phone because he wanted trouble. He kept it because opening those hidden files made him feel awake again for the first time in years emotionally. That is the dangerous part. The phone belonged to someone living inside terrifying reality Carter could not fully understand, yet psychologically. Hidden recordings. Anonymous warnings. Encrypted messages arriving every few minutes from unknown numbers. Videos secretly filmed inside expensive apartments and underground parking garages. Some clips lasted only seconds before ending abruptly emotionally. Others captured conversations between people clearly unaware they were being recorded at all. Carter spent entire night replaying fragments repeatedly while trying to piece together invisible story hidden beneath the files. And every answer only created worse questions afterward. Who owned the phone? Why were the videos hidden? And perhaps most importantly, who desperately wanted the device back badly enough to threaten complete stranger who picked it up accidentally? Those questions consumed Carter emotionally almost immediately because the contents of the phone did not resemble random criminal evidence or ordinary blackmail psychologically. The files felt personal, organized, deliberate. Whoever created them spent months documenting people secretly with clear purpose emotionally. Carter noticed recurring faces appearing across multiple videos. Politicians, wealthy business figures, unknown men entering garages late at night. Conversations suddenly ending whenever certain names appeared. The more Carter explored, the more the phone resembled hidden archive belonging to someone investigating dangerous people systematically. Then the encrypted messages started arriving continuously. Most remained impossible reading because the device required authentication codes Carter did not possess emotionally. But occasionally fragments slipped through before disappearing automatically. Coordinates, short warnings, mentions of meetings. One message simply read, "He knows the phone is active." Another arrived minutes later. "Do not trust the police." That detail unsettled Carter deeply psychologically because people experiencing fear often reveal truth accidentally through what they avoid emotionally. Whoever operated through those messages clearly believed danger extended beyond ordinary criminals somehow. Carter considered taking the phone directly to authorities several times throughout the night. But every threatening message made the situation feel more complicated psychologically instead of safer. Then came the phone calls. Unknown number. No voice. Only breathing. Slow. Controlled. Listening. Carter answered 3 separate calls before finally switching the device into silent mode emotionally. But even afterward, paranoia continued building inside him, because fear changes human behavior quickly once uncertainty becomes personal psychologically. Carter started checking apartment locks repeatedly, looking through blinds toward empty parking lot below his building, replaying hidden recordings, searching for details he might have missed emotionally. The phone no longer felt like object. It felt alive somehow, watching him back. And then Carter discovered something far worse. Someone had photographed him. At first, he thought exhaustion distorted what he saw emotionally. Buried inside newly uploaded folder were several photographs taken recently outside subway station. Carter standing beside his car. Carter walking through convenience store parking lot. Carter entering apartment building carrying the phone inside jacket pocket. None of the images looked accidental psychologically. Whoever took them intentionally documented his movements after finding the device. Meaning Carter Hayes was no longer outsider observing dangerous situation emotionally. He had already become part of it. That realization altered everything psychologically because suddenly ordinary events around him started feeling wrong. Subway cameras malfunctioning repeatedly whenever he passed through stations. Random strangers holding eye contact slightly too long. dark vehicles appearing behind him across multiple intersections emotionally. Carter kept trying to convince himself paranoia distorted reality because once fear enters human mind, coincidence becomes difficult separating from genuine threats psychologically. But then he watched one hidden recording that destroyed any remaining sense of safety completely. The video showed women sitting alone inside dark apartments speaking directly toward hidden camera emotionally. Exhausted eyes, trembling voice. She kept glancing toward doorway as though expecting interruption at any moment psychologically. If something happens to me, she whispered, it means they found the phone first. Then suddenly she looked directly toward the lens and spoke name Carter had not heard before. Victor Kane. The recording ended immediately afterward. Carter searched the device frantically for more information emotionally. Files connected to Victor Kane appeared repeatedly throughout the archives. News articles, financial records, secretly recorded meetings, surveillance clips, public appearances. Victor Kane was a wealthy real estate developer publicly known across the city for luxury projects and political influence psychologically. Yet hidden inside the phone were dozens of recordings suggesting someone investigated him obsessively for months. And whoever owned the phone vanished completely 3 days earlier. Carter discovered that detail accidentally while searching local news archives before sunrise emotionally. Missing person bulletin. Small article buried beneath larger headlines. Investigative journalist named Emma Pierce disappeared without explanation after failing to arrive at scheduled meeting downtown. Last seen entering subway station 3 nights earlier. Same station where Carter found the cracked black phone. Same night the device suddenly appeared beside the tracks emotionally. That was the moment Carter Hayes finally understood something terrifying psychologically. The phone had not been lost. It had been left behind intentionally. And whoever disappeared wanted someone else to find it before the wrong person did. Before the phone entered Carter Hayes' life, most people would have described him as forgettable in the quietest possible way emotionally. Not because he lacked intelligence or talent, but because disappointment slowly teaches people how to disappear psychologically. Carter once moved through the world very differently years earlier, when photography still felt connected to purpose instead of survival. At 32, he had real clients, gallery invitations, commercial contracts, and enough confidence to believe his life was building towards something meaningful emotionally. He traveled constantly for work then. Fashion events, magazine shoots, independent documentaries. Friends used to describe Carter as observant in ways that felt almost artistic psychologically. He noticed details other people ignored naturally. Emotional expressions, small gestures, hidden tension between strangers inside ordinary conversations. The camera simply became extension of instincts he already possessed emotionally. Then the marriage collapsed. And after that, almost everything else followed quietly behind it. Carter never explained the divorce publicly because people rarely tell complete truth about emotional failure, even to themselves psychologically. Officially, the relationship ended because both of them grew apart. But emotionally, Carter understood something more painful happened slowly over time. He became emotionally unavailable long before either of them admitted it aloud. Photography consumed more of his attention than actual life. Work became escape from vulnerability. Then success disappeared too. Once the marriage ended, Carter lost focus professionally almost immediately emotionally. Missed deadlines, failed contracts. Clients stopped calling eventually. By 41, the career that once made him feel alive reduced into scattered freelance jobs barely covering monthly expenses psychologically. And loneliness changes people in ways difficult noticing while it happens. Carter stopped answering messages from old friends eventually, because embarrassment becomes isolating emotionally once someone's life no longer resembles the future they once promised themselves. His apartment grew quieter over the years. Smaller somehow. He worked late-night jobs now because they paid immediately and required minimal conversation psychologically. Most evenings ended exactly the same way emotionally. Long drives home through empty streets. Cheap takeout dinners eaten alone. Editing photographs beneath dim apartment lights while television noise filled silence nobody else occupied anymore. That emotional drifting matters deeply because it explains why Carter Hayes became vulnerable to obsession once the phone appeared psychologically. People often believe dangerous mysteries attract thrill seekers or reckless personalities emotionally. But many times they attract lonely people instead. People searching unconsciously for purpose, urgency, or emotional intensity missing from ordinary life. Carter did not keep investigating because he wanted danger specifically. He kept investigating because the mystery surrounding Emma Pierce suddenly made his own emotionally empty life feel significant again psychologically. Emma Pierce fascinated him almost immediately. The more Carter explored the hidden files inside the cracked black phone, the more emotionally real Emma became somehow. Unlike the powerful men appearing silently throughout surveillance footage, Emma spoke directly into cameras, often emotionally. Sometimes exhausted, sometimes frightened, but never uncertain psychologically. Carter watched dozens of short recordings where she documented meetings, conversations, hidden locations, and emotional observations connected to investigation nobody publicly understood yet. Emma Pierce was an investigative journalist known for exposing corruption aggressively despite constant pressure to stop emotionally. Publicly, she appeared fearless, intelligent, persistent, but hidden recordings revealed different sides psychologically. Carter noticed subtle fear growing inside her over time. Increasing paranoia, sudden pauses while speaking, frequent glances toward doorways and windows emotionally. Emma understood something dangerous surrounded the people she investigated long before disappearing entirely. And perhaps the most unsettling part of all, she seemed to know disappearance might happen eventually. One hidden recording especially stayed buried inside Carter's mind afterward emotionally. Emma sat alone inside parked car late at night, speaking quietly toward the phone camera while rain covered the windshield outside psychologically. Most people think danger looks obvious, she whispered. It doesn't. At first the line sounded philosophical emotionally, almost dramatic. But later those words became devastating psychologically because Carter eventually understood exactly what Emma meant. Dangerous people rarely announce themselves clearly. Sometimes they look respectable, successful, safe emotionally. Sometimes they wear expensive suits, donate money publicly, and smile during interviews while destroying lives privately where nobody notices psychologically. That realization pointed directly toward Victor Kane. Publicly, Victor Kane represented success story Americans admire instinctively emotionally. Powerful real estate developer, wealthy philanthropist, frequent television appearances discussing urban renewal projects and economic growth psychologically. News articles described him as visionary businessman rebuilding neglected communities through investment emotionally. But hidden inside Emma Pierce's recordings existed completely different version of Victor Kane altogether. Private meetings filmed secretly from distance. Arguments inside parking garages. Conversations abruptly stopping whenever certain names surfaced emotionally. Encrypted financial transfers. Surveillance clips showing Victor Kane entering buildings late at night with public officials and unknown men psychologically. Carter quickly realized Emma Pierce had not been collecting random evidence emotionally. She had been constructing massive investigation targeting someone powerful enough to hide behind public respectability completely. And now she was gone. That truth finally pushed Carter toward Detective Lena Brooks emotionally after 2 sleepless nights alone inside apartment replaying recordings obsessively. Lena Brooks worked subway transit investigations across multiple districts and built reputation around instincts bordering uncomfortable accuracy psychologically. She noticed things other officers ignored emotionally. Patterns, behavioral inconsistencies, emotional reactions. Carter met her initially because Emma Pierce's disappearance officially connected back towards subway station where the phone appeared. And Detective Lena Brooks immediately distrusted him. Not openly, not aggressively, but emotionally. Carter sensed it during their first conversation psychologically. Lena asked questions too carefully, watched his reactions too closely emotionally. Carter lied partially about how much he explored the phone already because by then he no longer trusted situation enough to reveal everything honestly psychologically. But Lena Brooks recognized something many people overlooked about Carter Hayes almost immediately. He was curious. Too curious emotionally for someone claiming accidental involvement. That detail mattered because curiosity changes behavior subtly psychologically. Carter asked questions ordinary witnesses never ask emotionally. He remembered timestamps, camera angles, details buried inside recordings he should not have examined carefully already. Lena noticed every inconsistency silently while maintaining calm professional tone emotionally. And somewhere beneath growing something far larger than ordinary corruption psychologically. Carter told himself he only needed a little more information before making decision. Just enough to understand what exactly Emma uncovered and why someone seemed desperate recovering the device before authorities examined it properly emotionally. But obsession rarely announces itself clearly while it develops. It disguises itself as temporary curiosity first. And Carter Hayes was already far beyond curiosity. Sleep became almost impossible psychologically because every hour spent away from the phone felt emotionally wrong somehow. Carter spent entire nights alone inside dark apartment replaying recordings frame by frame searching for details Emma intentionally buried inside footage. Secret meetings filmed through restaurant windows. Political figures entering private elevators late at night. Surveillance clips from parking garages and abandoned properties emotionally. Some recordings lasted only seconds before ending abruptly, almost as though Emma stopped filming suddenly after realizing someone approached nearby psychologically. Then Carter discovered encrypted folders hidden beneath ordinary file directories. That changed everything emotionally. Most people would never notice the folders existed because Emma disguised them carefully beneath corrupted image files and damaged storage fragments psychologically. But Carter spent years editing digital photography professionally. He recognized manipulation patterns instinctively emotionally. Hidden metadata, altered timestamps, storage inconsistencies. Once he realized Emma intentionally concealed certain material deeper inside the device, Carter became convinced the phone contained evidence dangerous enough to destroy powerful people psychologically. And unfortunately, that belief made him keep digging. The encrypted folders contained fragments at first emotionally. Financial documents, voice recordings, surveillance images of luxury apartments and private meetings. But certain names repeated constantly throughout the files. Victor Kane, city officials, transit contracts, property acquisitions. Carter slowly realized Emma Pierce had not simply investigated isolated scandals psychologically. She appeared to be documenting a network of politically connected individuals operating through hidden financial arrangements emotionally protected by public respectability. One recording disturbed Carter more than any other. Emma secretly filmed meeting inside upscale restaurant from concealed angle emotionally. Victor Kane sat across from unknown city official while discussing property clearances connected to low-income housing developments psychologically. The conversation sounded ordinary initially until Victor quietly mentioned removing obstacles before both men abruptly noticed something nearby. Emma ended recording immediately afterward emotionally. Carter replayed that phrase repeatedly because sometimes truth hides inside language people use casually when they believe nobody important is listening psychologically. Removing obstacles, not helping communities, not rebuilding neighborhoods. Removing obstacles emotionally. The more Carter watched, the more his emotional isolation transformed into fixation psychologically. His apartment slowly filled with notes, timestamps, printed screenshots, and names connected through invisible patterns only he understood emotionally. Food containers piled beside computer desk untouched for hours. Missed client calls. Unpaid bills forgotten entirely. Carter stopped thinking about normal life because the mystery surrounding Emma Pierce consumed every remaining piece of emotional attention psychologically. Then came the night everything changed permanently. It started accidentally. Around 2:40 in the morning, Carter attempted bypassing corrupted video folder Emma clearly intended hiding deeper inside the device emotionally. Most files inside appeared damaged or password protected beyond access psychologically. But one fragment suddenly opened after Carter connected recovery software through his laptop. The screen froze momentarily before hidden recording finally appeared. Emma Pierce filled the frame immediately. Unlike earlier videos, she no longer looked composed emotionally. She looked terrified. The camera shook slightly while Emma filmed herself inside darkroom. Carter could not identify psychologically. Her breathing sounded uneven. Exhausted, she kept checking doorway repeatedly before speaking emotionally. "If this phone is found," she whispered carefully, "it means they know." Carter leaned closer instinctively. Emma's voice lowered further. "They know I recorded everything." Then suddenly, violent pounding exploded against Carter's apartment door. The sound was so loud and unexpected Carter physically knocked coffee across the desk emotionally. Another violent bang followed immediately afterward. Carter froze completely while adrenaline flooded through him psychologically because fear feels different once danger reaches physical space around you directly. The apartment lights shut off seconds later. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Outside the door, someone pounded again harder than before emotionally, while the cracked black phone beside Carter suddenly exploded with incoming messages one after another psychologically. Notifications flooded across the screen so quickly he could barely read them. "Do not open the door. He found you. Delete everything." Then window alarm activated somewhere inside apartment. Sharp mechanical warning cutting through darkness emotionally. Carter stumbled backward instinctively while trying to remain silent psychologically. Through the peephole, he saw only distorted shape standing motionless outside the apartment door. No face visible. No movement. Just figure waiting silently beneath dim hallway light emotionally. The pounding stopped completely. And somehow that silence terrified Carter even more psychologically. He backed slowly into the dark living room, clutching the phone, while every instinct screamed at him to run emotionally. But there was nowhere safe left suddenly, because whoever stood outside already knew where he lived. Knew he possessed the device. Knew he opened files never meant reaching public view psychologically. Then the phone began auto-playing final video automatically. The screen illuminated Carter's face inside darkness, while footage loaded without warning emotionally. Emma Pierce appeared again, this time hidden inside underground parking garage, filming secretly from behind concrete pillars psychologically. The image quality shook violently, while distant argument echoed somewhere nearby emotionally. Carter raised volume carefully. Victor Kane stood several feet away, arguing aggressively with unknown man Carter could not fully identify psychologically. Their voices overlapped, too distorted understanding clearly at first emotionally. But Victor suddenly shouted one sentence loud enough, cutting through static completely. "You think she's the only one recording this?" The unknown man moved suddenly. Then, gunshot. The camera jerked violently sideways. Concrete floor filled the frame, and the recording ended instantly. For several long seconds, Carter simply stared at the dark screen, unable processing what he just witnessed emotionally. Real fear finally replaced curiosity completely psychologically, because suddenly the hidden recordings no longer suggested corruption abstractly. They suggested violence. Murder possibly. Cover-up emotionally protected by powerful people with resources capable finding anyone connected to the evidence. Then Carter noticed something else buried inside the video metadata. Timestamp. The footage recorded only hours before Emma Pierce officially disappeared. And somewhere outside the dark apartment, someone still stood waiting beyond the door. By sunrise, the story surrounding Emma Pierce exploded across every major news channel in the city emotionally. Missing investigative journalist. Last seen entering downtown subway station 3 nights earlier. Authorities asking public for information while grainy photographs of Emma filled television screens, online articles, and social media timelines psychologically. Most people watching the coverage saw another tragic disappearance unfolding inside modern city already overloaded with noise, corruption, and forgotten headlines emotionally. But Carter Hayes sat alone inside dark apartment understanding something horrifying nobody else publicly knew yet. Emma Pierce did not simply disappear. She vanished while carrying evidence powerful enough to terrify people connected to it psychologically. And now Carter possessed the phone containing everything. That realization trapped him between fear and obsession emotionally in ways impossible explaining logically afterward. Part of Carter desperately wanted to destroy the device completely, walk into nearest police station, and remove himself from the nightmare before things became worse psychologically. But another part of him already crossed emotional line difficult returning from. He needed answers now. Needed to understand why Emma looked terrified in final recordings. Needed to know what Victor Kane argued about moments before gunshot echoed through the parking garage emotionally. Most dangerously of all, Carter needed the mystery itself psychologically. Because after years drifting emotionally through empty routines and loneliness, fear suddenly gave his life urgency again. Purpose. Adrenaline. That emotional truth disturbed Carter privately because deep down he realized obsession was beginning replacing survival instinct psychologically. Meanwhile, public theories multiplied faster than investigators could control emotionally. Some people believed Emma Pierce staged her own disappearance intentionally to expose corruption dramatically once enough media attention gathered psychologically. Others insisted Victor Kane orchestrated murder after discovering Emma's investigation. Online communities began dissecting every hidden detail from Emma's past emotionally. Old interviews, social media activity, financial records, previous investigations, anonymous forums filled with theories connecting politicians, developers, and law enforcement into sprawling conspiracy nobody fully understood psychologically. Then another possibility emerged quietly beneath the noise. What if Carter Hayes himself was being manipulated? That theory gained traction emotionally after anonymous posts surfaced online claiming Emma Pierce intentionally planted the phone where Carter would find it specifically. At first, the idea sounded impossible psychologically. Carter never met Emma publicly. Their lives never crossed paths before the subway station emotionally. But the more Carter thought about it privately, the less certain he became. Emma documented people obsessively, recorded details, followed patterns psychologically. What if she researched him beforehand somehow? What if the phone appearing beside the tracks was not random accident emotionally at all? That possibility terrified Carter because manipulation feels far worse than coincidence psychologically. Coincidence suggests chaos. Manipulation suggests design emotionally. And somewhere beneath all the confusion, Detective Lena Brooks quietly kept investigating. Unlike media personalities chasing dramatic headlines emotionally, Lena approached Emma Pierce's disappearance with unsettling precision psychologically. She revisited subway footage repeatedly, interviewed transit employees multiple times, reconstructed Emma's final movements hour by hour emotionally. And throughout every interaction with Carter Hayes, Lena noticed inconsistencies growing harder, ignoring psychologically. Carter remembered too much emotionally. Too many details ordinary witness should never know psychologically. Camera angles, timing discrepancies, behavioral observations buried inside evidence reports emotionally. Lena never accused him directly, but Carter sensed suspicion building quietly behind her questions each time they spoke psychologically. Then came the moment Lena asked something that froze Carter internally. Did Emma Pierce contact you before she disappeared? The question sounded casual emotionally. But Carter immediately understood the danger beneath it psychologically, because Lena was no longer investigating him simply as witness. She was testing whether connection existed between him and Emma before the subway station encounter emotionally. Carter lied instinctively, said no, claimed he only found abandoned phone accidentally. Lena watched him silently several seconds afterward, and Carter realized something deeply unsettling psychologically. Detective Lena Brooks could tell when people were hiding fear emotionally. Meanwhile, the phone itself continued revealing worse truths every day. Late one night, Carter discovered hidden tracking software buried inside the operating system emotionally. Not ordinary location sharing. Advanced monitoring program designed specifically to transmit device movement continuously even when disconnected from visible applications psychologically. Someone always intended locating the phone eventually. Carter immediately shut the device down emotionally, wrapped it inside metal storage container, and moved it between locations obsessively afterward. But paranoia already infected him psychologically. Carter stopped sleeping properly completely. Coffee replaced meals emotionally. He carried the cracked black phone everywhere despite fearing it constantly, because leaving it behind somehow felt even more dangerous psychologically. Every stranger holding eye contact too long suddenly looked threatening. Every dark vehicle parked outside his apartment felt intentional emotionally. Once he physically left grocery store without purchasing anything because man near frozen food aisle glanced toward him twice while speaking quietly in his cell phone psychologically. Fear changes how people interpret reality. And Carter Hayes was beginning losing ability, separating actual danger from emotional projection psychologically. Still, he kept studying Emma's recordings obsessively. That was the contradiction destroying him emotionally. The more frightened he became, the deeper he investigated anyway psychologically. Carter recovered deleted files gradually using software tools left over from old photography editing work emotionally. Fragments at first. Corrupted audio, partial documents, surveillance still psychologically. But buried inside the recovered material existed detail, changing everything permanently. Emma Pierce had secretly been meeting whistleblower. Multiple hidden recordings captured fragments of conversations between Emma and unidentified source emotionally. The person never appeared fully on camera psychologically. Only distorted voice discussing illegal property seizures, financial transfers, and protection payments involving city officials emotionally. One phrase repeated constantly throughout the conversations. They control more than the public knows. Then Carter uncovered unknown bank transfers connected to shell corporations emotionally linked toward Victor Kane's development projects psychologically. Massive sums moving between accounts shortly before low-income housing demolitions and transit redevelopment approvals emotionally. Emma clearly followed money trail intentionally. But the real shock came afterward. One recovered video file opened accidentally while Carter searched deeper through encrypted archives emotionally. At first, the footage appeared ordinary psychologically. Victor Kane exiting private restaurant beside two men in suits. But then Carter recognized one face immediately emotionally. Police officer. Not retired. Active duty psychologically. Carter froze completely. He searched further frantically afterward emotionally. More videos appeared. More officers. Meetings. Conversations. Surveillance clips capturing police vehicles near properties connected to Emma's investigation psychologically. Some officers accepted envelopes. Others escorted Victor Kane privately through restricted areas emotionally. One recording even captured Detective Carter recognized from local television interviews discussing anti-corruption initiatives publicly. That was the moment the entire situation transformed psychologically. Until then, Carter believed danger revolved around wealthy businessmen protecting hidden scandal emotionally. But now terrifying new possibility emerged. Emma Pierce had not only been recording Victor Kane, she had been recording law enforcement too, meaning the dangers surrounding the phone might extend directly into the very institutions Carter assumed could protect him psychologically. And suddenly Detective Lena Brooks's questions felt very different emotionally, because Carter no longer knew whether she was investigating the corruption or part of it herself. The deeper Carter Hayes moved into Emma Pierce's hidden files, the harder it became separating corruption from organized system designed specifically to survive exposure emotionally. At first, Carter believed Emma investigated isolated scandal involving Victor Kane secretly manipulating property deals for financial gain psychologically. But the truth waiting beneath the recordings was far larger and far more devastating emotionally than one powerful businessman protecting illegal money. Emma Pierce uncovered entire network, and every layer connected back toward people trusted publicly to protect ordinary citizens psychologically. The hidden files revealed patterns spanning years emotionally. Illegal property seizures targeting low-income neighborhoods before redevelopment contracts suddenly increased property values dramatically afterward psychologically. Families forced from homes through manipulated code violations. Evictions accelerated using pressure from local agencies emotionally. Buildings declared unsafe shortly before acquisition by shell corporations secretly connected toward Victor Kane's development empire psychologically. Publicly, everything appeared legal because paperwork always looked clean on the surface emotionally. But Emma documented what happened underneath. Money laundering hidden through redevelopment grants psychologically. Politicians receiving undisclosed payments through consulting firms emotionally. Police officers quietly protecting operations by intimidating witnesses or ignoring complaints connected to targeted properties psychologically. Carter watched recording after recording showing frightened residents describing threats, surveillance, and unexplained pressure forcing them out emotionally long before demolition projects officially began. And Victor Kane sat directly at the center of all of it. That realization shattered Carter psychologically because suddenly Emma Pierce's disappearance no longer resembled dangerous investigation gone wrong emotionally. It resembled predictable consequence inside system already experienced eliminating obstacles quietly for years. Carter finally understood why Emma looked terrified in her final recordings emotionally. She had not simply uncovered corruption. She uncovered network emotionally protected by wealth, political influence, and law enforcement connections simultaneously. Then Carter discovered truth about the phone itself. Emma never lost it accidentally. One recovered audio file changed everything psychologically. The recording captured Emma speaking hurriedly while subway announcements echoed faintly in the background emotionally. "If this reaches someone outside the system," she whispered, "the evidence survives." Then footsteps approached quickly. Emma's breathing changed emotionally, and the recording ended. Carter replayed the file repeatedly afterward because the meaning became horrifyingly clear psychologically. Emma intentionally left the cracked black phone inside the subway station, hoping someone ordinary would find it before the people hunting her emotionally. She understood disappearance was possible already, maybe even likely. The phone was never random accident lying beside the tracks late at night psychologically. It was emergency plan, and Carter Hayes unknowingly walked directly into it emotionally. That truth arrived fully the night Detective Lena Brooks finally stopped pretending she distrusted him completely psychologically. Carter met her secretly inside nearly empty diner several miles outside downtown after receiving anonymous text instructing him not to use his own vehicle emotionally. Every instinct warned him the meeting might be trapped psychologically. But by then paranoia infected every part of his thinking anyway emotionally. Lena arrived alone. No police vehicle. No badge visible psychologically. For several long seconds, she simply watched Carter across the booth, while rain hit diner windows outside emotionally. Then she quietly placed folder onto the table between them. Inside were photographs Carter never expected seeing psychologically. Emma Pierce and Detective Lena Brooks meeting privately multiple times during previous months emotionally. Parking garages, coffee shops, transit stations, secret conversations photographed from distance psychologically. Carter looked up immediately. Lena's expression never changed emotionally. Emma contacted me before she disappeared, she said quietly. That single sentence altered everything psychologically. Lena explained Emma no longer trusted parts of the police department emotionally after discovering certain officers connected directly toward Victor Kane's operation psychologically. Internal complaints disappeared mysteriously. Evidence changed. Surveillance footage corrupted emotionally. Emma realized too many people inside law enforcement already compromised to know who remained trustworthy anymore psychologically. Except Lena Brooks. Emma chose her carefully emotionally because Lena spent years fighting corruption cases nobody else wanted touching psychologically. She developed reputation inside departments for refusing pressure quietly even when it damaged promotions emotionally. And eventually Emma Pierce trusted her enough to reveal pieces of the investigation privately. But not all of it. That detail mattered deeply psychologically because even Lena Brooks did not know where every hidden file existed emotionally. Emma intentionally separated information across multiple locations and devices in case anyone inside the system turned against her psychologically, including Lena herself. Emma trusted evidence more than people, Lena admitted quietly. That line stayed with Carter afterward emotionally, because it explained entire emotional architecture surrounding the phone psychologically. Emma understood institutions fail. Relationships fail. Fear changes loyalty emotionally. So she built a system where truth could survive independently even if she disappeared completely. And somehow Carter Hayes became part of that system accidentally. Or maybe not accidentally at all. That possibility haunted him constantly afterward psychologically, because once he accepted Emma intentionally abandoned the phone publicly, another question emerged emotionally. Why that station specifically? Why that exact night? Why leave device where Carter Hayes would find it psychologically? Carter tried convincing himself coincidence explained everything emotionally. But paranoia already changed how his mind interpreted reality psychologically. Emma documented people obsessively. She studied patterns, behavioral habits, emotional vulnerabilities emotionally. Was it really impossible she identified Carter beforehand somehow? Lonely freelance photographer moving through subway stations late at night, emotionally invisible enough nobody would question him carrying abandoned device away psychologically. The uncertainty consumed him. And beneath all the fear, Carter finally admitted truth about himself emotionally. Part of him no longer wanted escape from the mystery psychologically. Late one night, while reviewing Emma's recordings alone inside dark apartment, Carter caught his reflection staring back through black computer screen emotionally. Exhausted eyes, unshaven face, coffee cups scattered everywhere psychologically. The realization hit him almost violently emotionally. He continued investigating not solely because Emma deserved justice, not solely because corruption needed exposure psychologically, but because for the first time in years, he felt emotionally alive again. Fear sharpened everything psychologically. Every message mattered. Every clue carried urgency. Every decision suddenly meant something emotionally. Carter hated himself for recognizing that truth because it revealed uncomfortable reality about loneliness psychologically. Human beings will sometimes move closer toward danger if danger finally makes them feel connected to life again emotionally. And by picking up Emma Pierce's phone beside that empty subway platform, Carter Hayes unknowingly placed himself directly inside conspiracy powerful enough destroying anyone who threatened exposing it psychologically. The worst part? There was no safe way out anymore emotionally. Because now the people hunting Emma Pierce knew something terrifying too. Carter Hayes had seen everything. 3 weeks after Carter Hayes found the cracked black phone beside the empty subway tracks, the entire city exploded emotionally in ways nobody could control anymore psychologically. News broadcasts interrupted regular programming. Emergency press conferences appeared across every network. Headlines flooded social media faster than people could process them emotionally. Victor Kane arrested in massive corruption investigation. Federal agencies raiding development offices. Police officers suspended pending investigation. Millions of dollars connected to illegal property seizures uncovered psychologically. For the public, it looked like victory emotionally. The kind of story people desperately want believing still happens in modern world. Powerful men exposed. Corrupt systems collapsing. Investigative journalism changing reality psychologically. Emma Pierce's face appeared everywhere suddenly. News outlets called her courageous, fearless, heroic emotionally. Protesters gathered outside city buildings demanding deeper investigations, while commentators praised the evidence leak that destroyed Victor Kane's empire psychologically. And somewhere beneath all the chaos, Carter Hayes sat alone inside dark apartment, feeling absolutely nothing resembling triumph emotionally. Because deep down he understood something the public did not. Stories become dangerous long before they become public psychologically. By the time society celebrates truth openly, the people closest to it are usually already broken emotionally. Carter barely recognized himself anymore psychologically. Weeks without proper sleep hollowed out his face emotionally. His apartment transformed into paranoid maze of locked doors, disconnected electronics, hidden notes, and constantly shifting routines psychologically. He no longer trusted elevators, cameras, random strangers emotionally. Sometimes he drove across the city for hours before returning home because he convinced himself certain vehicles followed him repeatedly psychologically. And perhaps the most disturbing part of all, he still kept the phone beside him constantly, even after Victor Kane's arrest, even after evidence spread publicly, even after Emma Pierce's investigation finally reached the world emotionally. Because Carter understood something terrifying psychologically, the story still did not feel finished. That realization returned the night Detective Lena Brooks visited him privately one final time emotionally. No police vehicle, no official conversation. She arrived exhausted, emotionally drained in ways Carter had never seen before psychologically. The city outside celebrated arrests and corruption exposés, while Lena stood silently inside Carter's apartment, looking like someone carrying truth too heavy, speaking aloud emotionally. For several seconds, neither of them talked. Then Lena quietly said something that changed everything again psychologically. "We may have been wrong about Emma." Carter stared at her immediately emotionally. Lena explained federal investigators officially believed Emma Pierce died shortly after disappearing psychologically. Internal reports claimed evidence pointed toward attempted escape, ending violently near industrial district outside the city emotionally. Closed files. Classified details. No recovered body yet, but authorities privately prepared narrative explaining her disappearance publicly psychologically. But Lena no longer believed it. Because shortly before Victor Kane's arrest, something appeared inside evidence archive nobody could explain emotionally. Encrypted transmission automatically activated from the cracked black phone. The device Carter still carried everywhere. Lena handed him printed coordinates silently psychologically. Carter's hands trembled slightly while reading them emotionally. Remote location outside the city near abandoned marina district psychologically. But the coordinates mattered less than the message attached beneath them. One sentence only. "Don't trust the story they tell about me." Silence filled the apartment afterward emotionally. Real silence. The kind arriving when human beings suddenly realize certainty no longer exists psychologically. Carter reread the message repeatedly while his mind raced through every possibility emotionally. If Emma Pierce sent the transmission recently, she might still be alive. But if she remained alive intentionally, why disappear completely after Victor Kane's arrest psychologically? Why continue hiding if the corruption network finally collapsed publicly emotionally? Unless it never truly collapsed at all. That possibility settled over Carter slowly, like weight pressing against his chest psychologically. Victor Kane represented visible face of the scandal emotionally. Wealthy, public, easy for media, transforming into symbol psychologically. But Emma's recordings always hinted towards something larger beneath him. Politicians, police, financial systems emotionally connected through layers complicated enough, surviving even after one central figure disappeared psychologically. Maybe Victor Kane's arrest simply satisfied public attention temporarily. Maybe Emma Pierce understood exposing visible corruption only reveals small piece of deeper structure emotionally. And maybe disappearing remained safer than becoming symbol everyone wanted controlling afterward psychologically. Carter looked toward the cracked black phone resting silently on the table emotionally. Weeks earlier it represented mystery, then danger, then obsession psychologically. But now it felt like unfinished conversation with someone still moving somewhere beyond his reach emotionally. And perhaps the most devastating realization of all finally reached him fully. Emma Pierce trusted evidence more than people, because people eventually reshape truth into stories emotionally easier surviving publicly psychologically. Heroes, villains, closed cases, solved mysteries emotionally. But reality rarely ends cleanly enough for those categories psychologically. Lena Brooks eventually stood to leave without another word emotionally. Before reaching the apartment door, she paused briefly. "If Emma's alive," she said quietly, "someone still wants her silent." Then she left. Carter remained alone beside the glowing phone while rain struck apartment windows softly outside emotionally. For several long minutes, nothing happened psychologically. The city beyond the glass celebrated arrests and headlines believing justice finally arrived emotionally. Then the phone screen lit up again. Unknown number calling. No name. No location psychologically. Only the sound of vibration echoing through the dark apartment emotionally. Carter stared at the screen without moving. Because by then he finally understood the most terrifying truth inside Emma Pierce's entire investigation psychologically. People think truth sets you free. But sometimes, truth simply makes you the next target. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the city, someone was still waiting for Carter Hayes to answer the phone. By the end of everything, Carter Hayes never truly answered the question that haunted him from the moment he picked up the cracked black phone beside the subway tracks emotionally. Did he help uncover dangerous truth that needed exposing psychologically? Or did curiosity slowly destroy what remained of his normal life long before he realized it was happening emotionally? Because stories like this force people into uncomfortable psychological territory most avoid thinking about honestly. Everyone believes they would make rational decisions safely from distance emotionally. Turn the phone over immediately. Call authorities. Walk away. Protect themselves psychologically. But fear, loneliness, curiosity, and purpose change human behavior far more than people admit publicly emotionally. Carter Hayes did not begin this story trying to become hero. He was lonely, financially exhausted, emotionally disconnected from his own life psychologically. Then suddenly one mysterious phone made him feel something again emotionally. Urgency, meaning, danger. And perhaps that is what makes stories like this so disturbing psychologically. The realization that ordinary people rarely fall into terrifying situations because they are reckless emotionally. Sometimes they fall into them because mystery fills emotional emptiness they did not realize existed inside them already. So now the question becomes yours. Would you have turned the phone over immediately? Or kept investigating? Be honest emotionally. Because once you hear frightened voice messages, hidden recordings, and evidence powerful people desperately want hidden psychologically, walking away becomes much harder than most people imagine emotionally. And we also want to know something even deeper. How far would curiosity push you? Can ordinary people truly survive dangerous truths once they become emotionally connected to them psychologically? Leave your thoughts in the comments. because conversations like this reveal far more about human nature than people expect emotionally. Some viewers will believe Carter Hayes became victim of circumstances completely beyond his control psychologically. Others will argue he ignored multiple opportunities walking away safely because obsession already consumed him emotionally. And maybe the hardest truth is realizing both ideas can exist at the same time. Because the moment Carter Hayes opened Emma Pierce's phone, his old life quietly ended psychologically. And if you think Carter's discovery changed his life, wait until you hear what happened after the next message appeared.